People think that to build a really good startup, a really good company in this space, you need to be really good at technology. But it turns out actually the opposite is true. The more you know about your industry, your phenomenon, your consumer, your problem, the more valuable or the more unique your idea is likely to be.
Ever start your day wondering if Wikipedia editors might hold the key to unlocking innovation? Neither did I, until I came across today's guest. Welcome to School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, the private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global startup ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we collaborate with institutions that are shaping the future of entrepreneurship. And this series is all about highlighting the academic leaders behind that movement. I'm Harish, your host today, and joining us is Professor Abhishek Nagaraj, Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. He's also a researcher whose work makes you see data, decision making, and innovation in ways you have probably never considered. Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So before we get into the serious stuff, I have something to ask. You have got some incredible paper titles, and my favorite is the Streetlight Effect in Data-Driven Exploration. If you had turned one of your research papers into a movie or a sitcom, what would it be called?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I have been working on like two or three different strands of work. And one common theme has been this metaphor of innovation and entrepreneurship is like searching for gold. And so I think it would be called something like the technology gold rush or the data gold rush.
Interesting. So let's zoom out for a second. How did this whole journey begin for you? From COEP to IIM Calcutta to MIT Sloan and now Berkeley. So, what pulled you into this world of research, innovation, and startups?
Great question. So I have always been interested in technology growing up. I was from starting from as a kid, assembling my own PCs back in the day when NVIDIA only was known for making gaming chips. So I was always interested in that. I grew up with the rise of the internet. I remember using Google for the first time. And it's very clear to me how powerful these technologies are and the impact that they can have. This was back in the 2000s when India was much less a part of the global technology ecosystem. We heard about Sabir Bhatia and Hotmail, but there were not a lot of local startups, not a lot of local entrepreneurs to look up to. There's no local ecosystem. And so I was always wondering as to like, even though the technology is available, why is there so much variation in who's actually able to build on the technology, capitalize it, and create these new startups? So on one hand, I was studying in computer engineering and computer science, but I was very interested in the policy and the social side of these questions as well. And so when I went to IIM Calcutta, I learned that there is a profession of people who can be involved with these questions and answer them in a systematic way. I also had a close quizzing friend, Gaurav Sabnes, who had gone on to do a PhD in marketing. And so I put kind of two and two together and said, wouldn't it be wonderful? Insofar as like I might not, my second option was to do my own startup. And so I was like, well, I can probably spend more time on the intellectual side of things and also be very close to the phenomenon that I care a lot about. And so that's what led me to a career in the social science of technology and entrepreneurship.
Interesting. You balance a lot teaching, advising, publishing. What's one project you're working on right now that really lights you up? Something that makes you lose track of time?
Yeah, I think many people are experiencing this phenomenon that I am too, that I call an addiction to understanding the power of our current AI systems. So I'm definitely a part of guilty of that. And so over the last few years, especially living in Silicon Valley, it's hard to not engage deeply with the phenomenon that we're seeing all around us in terms of different kinds of foundation models and large language models. And so more recently, I've been delving more into a field of computer science to understand how these models work and bring them to the social sciences to understand innovation. You mentioned the streetlight paper. So we have a paper where we actually simulate the entire social science process with AI agents. And we can actually look inside the brains of these AI agents in a way that we could never with humans to actually understand why they're making decisions in a particular way. That's the a set of projects that I can't stop thinking about. And I love it because it helps me go back to where I started, which is to combine a deep interest in the technology with human understanding. I think with AI, those two become even more closely intertwined.
This is becoming more interesting. But a quick pause for everyone watching. If you're enjoying this conversation so far, do us a favor, like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Traction channel. We've got more episodes just like this, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. So, Abhishek, let's talk trends, right? So, we have done deep research on how data platforms and the digital economy shape entrepreneurship. What's one trend you think most people are underestimating?
Um, that's a really good one in terms of underestimating trends. I think what people are underestimating is in the world of again building startups around AI, right? So every startup now has a .ai instead of a .com. The I think people think that, to build a really good startup, a really good company in this space, you need to be really good at technology. But it turns out actually the opposite is true. The more you know about your industry, your phenomenon, your consumer, your problem, the more valuable or the more unique your idea is likely to be. So I think the biggest thing that is being underestimated in the current age is the value of traditional knowledge, the value of domain knowledge, the value of really understanding your customer, really understanding the customer need. I think that has become even more important than in the past. And so I encourage my students, some of whom are feeling a bit, they almost feel like they are not jumping onto the bandwagon and they should quit what they know and learn something new. And I encourage them that actually all the value is in your past, in your history. We just need to combine it with the current trends in order to get value. So I think the value of domain knowledge is being underestimated in today's day and age.
Very interesting. And you've also studied how universities like Berkeley create innovation cultures, right? So, what do you think Berkeley does especially well in building entrepreneurial energy?
Yeah, I think especially coming from India, you might not fully understand, and we often hear about Berkeley as one of the top universities, and you put it in the same bucket as say an MIT or a Stanford or a Harvard. Berkeley is unique among all of these institutions in the sense that it's a public university. So it's the only public university that is competing with all of these other private universities. So, and in particular, it's the University of California at Berkeley. So in the same way that we have the IIT system, in California, we have the UC system. And UC Berkeley is the oldest, UC LA is the second oldest, and so it's a set of institutions. And Berkeley really represents the best of that. And so what that means is you get both some of the challenges of working at a public university, which is often we are subject to political pressures, government budgets and funding, UC Berkeley has the highest number of VC funded startups every year in the last 3 years, even when you compare it to Stanford and MIT. So what's actually going on? It's a puzzle. And UC Berkeley, I think it like has a little bit of what I love about India, which is there's a lot of bottom up innovation, a lot of bottom up chaos, if you would like. But it does a beautiful job of actually fostering that and supporting it without being overbearing or without being overly planned. And so we attract great people, we keep them here, and we give them a lot of independence and freedom to commingle and figure things out without a lot of structure. So the university is great for people who thrive in that environment, which is exactly what entrepreneurs need. The best entrepreneurs just need freedom and resources. And I think Berkeley is really great at providing that. Obviously, our location helps a lot. We are responsible for creating Silicon Valley, but it's a symbiotic relationship. And so, in my class, for example, I will have leaders from all the main companies come and speak, and our students will then go and work there, and then they'll come back in the future. There's a nice exchange, not just within the university ecosystem, but also with industry, which I think helps a lot.
Amazing. Talking about your classroom, what's one exercise or insight that really hits students? That aha moment when they get what startups are actually about.
Yeah. So, at the very start of my class, I sometimes like to shock my students by telling them that their ideas are not special. That what defines entrepreneurship is not great ideas, but is great execution. And so the best entrepreneurs are the ones who know how to take what I call ideas are really a vision. But entrepreneurship is all about uncertainty. How do you go from that vision to actually making it real? And so I talk a lot about how ideas are like little babies and they can grow up to be very different people. Some of those will be successful and others might not be. So the job of the entrepreneur is actually to guide that vision or guide that idea into something real. And what I present in my class is something called the strategy compass. It's a wonderful framework that came out of my advisor's work, Scott Stern at MIT. I recommend this book to everybody. And the Startup Compass provides a wonderful framework to think about four standard ways in which any idea can grow up. It turns out that if you look at the successful companies around you, you can sort them into four go to market strategies, so four growing up strategies. And it turns out that there is no one right answer, right? So every strategy has its pros and cons. That's why we study strategy. And so that is a core insight that I teach a lot and that students love is both this distinction between idea and execution. And that execution doesn't have to be endlessly complicated. There are existing motifs, existing frameworks, existing playbooks that you can use to, to then help your or guide your startup to success. So a good example is take something like a new technology that comes out of the lab, right? So take a large language model, an OpenAI model. So it turns out that one way to go to market is to build the product on top of it yourself, to build a chatbot. But you can also license the technology and have other people build all the following stuff. Or you could build like what Apple did, a two-sided platform where you actually don't build the apps, but you control the central approach. So there turns out to be even around the very same technology, completely different go-to-market approaches that we often combine the two. We think the idea is the same as the execution. And so that's a big thing that I think entrepreneurs should pay attention to is execution. It's all about how you implement those ideas in practice.
Very interesting. So now a bit more philosophical. You have shown in your work how tools like data or maps don't just inform decisions, they shape them, right? So in your view, what's the real cost of using the wrong map in innovation?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. So just since we didn't talk a lot about it, let me just give that metaphor for the listeners and reader and viewers. So in my work, what I show is that you should think about the process of entrepreneurship or innovation as like looking for the keys on a lost road, or like we had this old TV show where there's lots of different doors, and one of the door has a jackpot, and everything else has a goat or something else, right? So it's in the US, it's called the Monty Hall problem. And entrepreneurship is like that. It's a search problem. It's about finding which door has the really valuable stuff and which door doesn't. And so if you're thinking to think about it like that, you can think, okay, how can I help this entrepreneur get to the right door? And the answer turns out to be data or a map, right? So a guide to say, look, these two doors might be more valuable and these two doors might not be so valuable. And therefore you might pay more attention there, right? So there's a very simple idea like that. So I show in my dissertation that government and government data can play a big role in helping entrepreneurs find the right opportunities in any given marketplace. So now you ask the question, like, what's the mistake of using the wrong map? So in this example I gave you, I'm assuming that you have the right map, right? I'm pointing you in the right direction. Obviously, one of the big reasons why maps are so powerful is we believe in maps implicitly. We assume that they are the truth. But maps are often abstractions. They're only examples of what something looks like. You only have to look at a map of a city. A map is very different than actually living in the city and living and breathing it. A map misses a lot of those details, right? And so the big thing that I tell people is think about what produced the map. Who created the map? Why did they create it? Are they trying to fool you or mislead you? Or are they actually a benevolent actor who's trying to help you? Right? So if you go to Disneyland and you see a map that Disney gives you, it turns out that only the Disney hotels are on there. None of the other hotels are on there, even though they exist in practice. So the cost of using the wrong map is that you're not understanding the full landscape. While if you're using a real map, then you're more likely to make the right decision. And so the cost of using the wrong map can be quite significant. And there's many, many different ways in which maps can be wrong. And so maps are very valuable, but we need to understand where they come from. And if you have a measure of why they were created or what the incentives are of the people creating it, that can be very helpful. I have a paper called The Economics of Maps that goes into a lot of these questions.
Amazing. And you might have given this a lot many times, but for anyone just starting out, student, researchers, future founders, what's one piece of advice you would offer for navigating this messy, uncertain world of innovation?
Yeah, so I think this is metaphor about thinking about innovation or entrepreneurship as a search process, and then bringing in the spirit of experimentation. So in our class we call it test two, choose one, right? So think about the process of entrepreneurship of you have a limited amount of time or money, uh, and that is it's almost like your R&D budget. Even if you're a very small entrepreneur, you have an R&D budget to find out the right door, right? And so you have to find the right door before your money runs out. That's your big goal as an entrepreneur. And so how do you structure that process so that you don't spend all your time on the wrong doors when the right doors are completely different, right? So first explore the two cornermost doors, get some data, come back and reiterate. So we call this like the scientific mindset. Design experiments on multiple choices that you could be making. Get some data back, even though it's imperfect, and then use that to design the next round of experiments. And so even if you're something as simple as creating a new vegan food brand for South India, or you're creating the next high-tech biotechnology startup, the philosophy is the same, which is a philosophy of experimentation before you actually crack the market or crack the right door to open.
Amazing. Very, very useful insights. And I know 30 minutes is not enough for this. But where can we, all our viewers, learn more about your research, follow your work, or find your latest projects?
Thank you so much, Harish, for that question. Yeah, so to anyone listening in or watching, I am very active on Twitter. So the handle is Abhishek N. So you can follow me there. I will also post some of my more cogent thoughts to LinkedIn sometimes. So feel free to follow me on LinkedIn as well. You can also follow my website at abhishekn.com, where all my publications are posted. I also lead and co-direct the Data Innovation and AI Lab. And so on my website, you'll also find a link to the lab where you see all the lab members. If you're a social scientist or a researcher who wants to work and do more research on some of these questions or have questions about any of our papers, don't hesitate to reach out either through my email, which is on the website, or through some of these other forums that I mentioned before.
Fantastic. All the links will be available in the comment section. You can click on those links and reach out to Professor Abhishek. And that's a wrap on this episode of School to Startup. Today, we explored how data, decisions, and digital systems shape entrepreneurship and why academic papers might just double as Netflix pitches. Huge thanks to Professor Abhishek for joining us and sharing such a sharp insights. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you so much, Harish.
Great. So if you have liked what you heard, hit that like button, subscribe to Traction, drop us a comment, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next one.